From the time that God created the earth and brought Adam and Eve to the world, He created us to be perfect. He created us for Himself. And unfortunately, Adam and Eve could not see that or understand that, but let themselves be tempted, let themselves be taken away from God, even if it was just for a little while, enough to bring sin into the world and rejection of God. And the nation of Israel for many, many years went back and forth where they would be obedient to God for a while and rejected God for a little while, and then they would go back and forth. And even though God was their strength and their defender and their comfort, for many, many years they would forget. And they would do things that did not please God. And so God started bringing prophets into their lives, judges. But that wasn't enough. That was not enough. And so God had to revert to a second plan. And that was the plan of bringing His own Son to the world to die for us. And rejection of God today is as big as it's ever been. And it's sad. It's sad. Let's start with Jeremiah 17, 1-10. Jeremiah 17, 1-10. And if everybody's there, just say amen. Jeremiah 17, 1-10 says this: the sin of Judah is written with a pen of iron. With the point of a diamond it is engraved on the tablet of their hearts and on the horns of your altars, while their children remember their altars and their wooden images. By the green trees on the high hills, O my mountain in the field, I will give as plunder your wealth, all your treasures, and your high places of sin within all your borders. And you, even yourself, shall let go of your heritage, which I gave you, and I will cause you to serve your enemies in the land which you do not know. For you have kindled a fire in my anger, which shall burn forever. Thus says the Lord, cursed is the man who trusts in man and makes flesh his strength, whose heart departs from the Lord. For he shall be like a shrub in the desert, and shall not see when good comes, but shall inhabit the parched places in the wilderness, in a salt land which is not inhabited. Blessed is the man who trusts in the Lord, and whose hope is in the Lord. For he shall be like a tree planted by the waters, which spreads out its roots by the river, and will not fear when heat comes, but its leaf will be green, and will not be anxious in the year of drought, nor will cease from yielding fruit. The heart is deceitful above all things, and desperately wicked. Who can know it? I, the Lord, search the heart. I test the mind, even to give every man according to his ways, according to the fruit of his doings. Amen.
Amen.
Blessed Lord and Heavenly Father, we thank you, Father, for the message that we're about to receive, O Lord. I pray, Lord, that we can bring to this world, O Lord, the love and the care that you have for them, that you have for us, so that rejection, O Lord, could stop. But let these words that are spoken here today, Lord, be words that seal our hearts and keep us closer and closer to you. In Jesus' name.
Amen.
Amen. So my first point is sins are written in stone in some cases. And we see here in Jeremiah 17:1 that it says, the sin of Judah is written with a pen of iron, with the point of a diamond it is engraved on the tablet of their hearts and on the horns of your altars. Judah's sin was so deep, it had penetrated their hearts so deep, that it seemed to have been written, engraved in their hearts. Have you ever seen an engraving in something? It's forever. When you engrave something in metal, for example, it's forever. It might, in time, be hard to read because it starts to fade, but that's in time. But it takes a long time for that to fade. And the sins of Judah were the same way. They were so engraved in them. They were so etched inside of them that it was hard for them to get rid of them. They had gone deeper and deeper and deeper into sin with, graven images, worshiping and offering, making sacrificial offering to other images. It was just so bad, and God was so discontented, so disillusioned, so upset that Jeremiah came and he prophesied to his people about how God felt. And it's sad to say that these people were brought out of Egypt after 430 years of slavery. Because of their sinful nature, they spent in the wilderness 40 years that they should have done in 3 days. Because of their sinful nature, they went through all this trouble, all this being taken captive, and they still didn't learn. Even though God rescued them time and again. They came out of Egypt. God opened up the Red Sea so that they could walk through it. Their enemies fell into the water when the seas came back. God gave them the promised land. And a group of them decided to stay on the other side. They didn't even get to the promised land. They have been disobedient for as long as we can read in the Bible. And so now we're coming to a generation that's just as wicked. We're in a generation right now that's just as bad. We're in a generation right now that despises God. And so it is up to us to bring peace to chaos. It is up to us to bring sanity to the insanity of the world. It is up to us to bring love to destroy hate. And so we need to embrace what God is doing in our lives. In verse 4 it says, and you even yourself shall let go of your heritage which I gave you, and I will cause you to serve your enemies in the land which you do not know, for you have kindled a fire in my anger which shall burn forever. So God is telling Judah, the nation of Judah, what's going to happen. The nation of Israel this time is already serving the Syrians. They have already been taken away into captivity because of their disobedience. And so now Jeremiah is prophesying, and they're telling Jeremiah, well, God didn't tell you to tell us that. God did not say that. And I can only imagine how grieved Jeremiah must have felt when he is trying to bring these people back to their knees, back to Christ, back to God. And they're so ingrained in their sins that they can't see what God is putting right in front of their faces. God is asking them to turn away from these other gods. God is asking them to stop sacrificing to these gods and sacrifice to Him. God is asking them to stop worshiping these gods and worship Him. And they don't see it. They don't know the history, I guess, of their ancestors, or they just refuse to see how God protected, took care of their ancestors. So it says here, it says, and you even yourself shall let go of your inheritance which I gave you. What is the inheritance that God gave you?
Everlasting life.
He made him there in his nation, right? You are my nation, you are my people. And God is saying, you know that inheritance that I gave you? You're going to lose it. If you keep it up, you're going to lose it. They have totally rebelled against God. And we see more and more of that today. Jeremiah 17:5 says, thus says the Lord, cursed is the man who trusts man. Listen to this. Cursed is the man who trusts in man and makes flesh his strength, whose heart departs from the Lord. When you're not trusting in God, you're trusting in the enemy. When you can either trust God or trust someone else, right? If you're not trusting in God, you're trusting in the enemy. If you're not trusting in God, you're trusting in the flesh. And that's what he says here, right? And makes flesh his strength, whose heart departs from the Lord. You live in the flesh and you do whatever pleases you. You live in the flesh and you do whatever you want to do. And this is where the people of Judah were at this time. The people of Judah were doing whatever they wanted to do. They served whatever God they wanted to serve. They lived their life whatever way they wanted to live it. They sacrificed to whatever God they wanted to sacrifice. And they had totally rejected God. They had totally rebelled against God. They forgot what God had done for them. And now they're worshiping wooden images, clay images, metal images, when God himself was right there next to them. Now my second point is that we need to trust God so that we can be free. We need to trust God so that we can be free. Jeremiah 17:7 says, "Blessed is the man who trusts in the Lord and whose hope, listen to this, and whose hope is in the Lord." Blessed is the man who trusts in the Lord and whose hope is in the Lord. You know, I can just see Thomas when Jesus appeared to them, to the disciples, and they told him, "Hey, Jesus was here." He could not be here. I didn't see him. I got to see him for myself. And then Jesus appears one more time when they're all together and Thomas is there. And Jesus says to Thomas, look at my side, touch it, so that you can see that I'm real. And it took that for Thomas to believe. Here's a man that had walked with Jesus for 3 years. And he had to take for Jesus to actually come back in the flesh so that he could see him, for him to believe. And Jesus says, "Blessed is he who has not seen and yet believes." Judah, the people of Judah, had seen what God had done. They had written scrolls of what God had done. If this is a new generation that didn't see that for themselves, they could actually read what God had done for their people. That should have been enough. That should have been enough for them to say, wow, God is real. God is here with us. God has a place for us. We shouldn't be doing this. We shouldn't be doing that. We shouldn't be worshiping images. We should be taking care of our poor. We should be taking care of our widows. Those are things that God gave them. But no, they wanted to do what they wanted to do. And so, when a man trusts and delights in God, God blesses him. When a woman trusts and delights in God, God blesses her. And so we need to trust that God knows what's best for us. We need to trust that God is going to walk us to the next phase of our lives. And it seems like the nation of Judah could not see that God can actually take him to the next level. I mean, we saw how the Palestinian army was destroyed when God promised that he would destroy them. They didn't even have to fight them. We saw how the walls of Jericho fell down when God said, all you have to do is walk around over 7 times. This is all history of the Jews. This is something that they have in scrolls. But they did not trust in the Lord. But blessed is the man or woman who trusts in the Lord. A blessed man knows that the struggles, the pain, the suffering that we go through in this life are temporary, because this is not our home. Our home is in heaven. And so anything that we go through in this life, we know that is temporary. And we have to trust that that is so. Would you rather live a life of crime, for example? Because if you don't believe in God, you believe that you can do whatever you want. And then end up in jail maybe for 30 years or get killed by somebody when you try to commit the crime. Or would you rather live your life pleasing God and doing the right thing? Teaching your children, your grandchildren, good habits, good manners, great faith, great love. I mean, even, let's say there was no God. Let's say there was no God. Even if there was no God, just living that kind of life would have helped you. Instead of living a life of crime and going through all this misery. Unfortunately, for those who don't believe in God, we know that there is a God. We've seen enough miracles, we've seen enough revelations from God to understand and know that there is a God. And no one should have known better than the Jewish people. Because God had made revelation after revelation after revelation to them. And after each revelation, they would turn away. And so now Jeremiah is crying out to them, saying, believe, turn back, trust in God, trust in the Lord. Jeremiah 17:8 says, for he shall be like a tree. This is a man who trusts in God. A man who trusts in God. He says, for he shall be like a tree planted by the waters, which spreads out its roots by the river, and will not fear when he comes. But its leaf will be green and will not be anxious in the year of drought, nor will cease from yielding fruit. A man who follows God is like a tree planted by the waters. Why? Because a tree planted by the water, no matter how hot it is, it always gets water. It always gets water. There's water always coming in from underneath. So if you plant a tree close to the water, it will always have water. It will never die. It might die of old age, but it will never die from heat or anything else. Why? Because God provides. And so a man who trusts in God is like that man. God will always continue to feed you spiritually. He will continue to feed you spiritually. He will continue to give you what you need, not what you want. And he will feed you where you will never ever need to turn away from him. But we have to be faithful. We have to be obedient. And we have to be willing to do what pleases him. You know, during trials, tribulations, pain, suffering, we have to remain strong. And it's not always easy. It's not always easy, but we have to remain strong. Because we have to understand that at some point God is going to intervene and take care of us.
Amen.
And so we go through these trials, we go through these tribulations, but we don't need to be anxious. We don't need to, get desperate. And I'm telling you, this whole week has been a struggle for me. It's been a struggle. But I keep holding on to him.
Amen.
I keep holding on to him because I have nothing else. Who am I going to hold on to? I have to hold on to him. And Proverbs 3:5 says, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. Because our understanding is limited, God's understanding is not. Our knowledge is limited, God's knowledge is not. Our wisdom is limited, God's wisdom is not. God knows it all. He understands it all. But we are limited as to how much we know, how much we understand, how much we can take and how much we can give. Sometimes we don't have the wisdom to do certain things. And we have to ask God for that wisdom. And He provides. And so when we are going through all of these situations, we need to trust in the Lord with all our hearts, which is what the Jews lacked in these days. In the days of Jeremiah, they lacked it. When we don't trust in the Lord, we lean in the flesh, which is what the Jews were doing at the time. They were leaning on their flesh. Because there was no way that those wooden images were going to respond to them. There was no way that those clay images were going to respond to them. There was no way that those metal images were going to respond to them and give them what they needed. There was no way. So they kept struggling. They kept getting themselves deeper and deeper in trouble. They kept going into captivity. And by the way, they went into captivity. The nation of Israel first, and then the nation of Judah eventually went into captivity as God had planned for them because of the rejection of Him. They were raided by the Babylonians in 605 BC, and that's when Daniel and his friends, along with 10,000, along with a whole bunch of other people, were taken into captivity in Babylon. But they still remain, the rest remain in Judah. In 597 BC, King Nebuchadnezzar again came back and took Ezekiel along with another 10,000 Jews. In 587 BC, the Babylonians came and took everyone else except for the poor people. Why the poor? Why were the poor left behind? They had nothing to give. Many of them were not educated. They just left them behind. But everyone else was taken. But think about this. Why the poor? God has always taken care of the poor. God is always looking out for the poor. And so they were left behind. You know, sometimes we know better than God. And we don't consult God in decisions that we have to make. And that's when we get in trouble. Jeremiah 17:9-10 says, "The heart is deceitful above all things, and desperately wicked. Who can know it? I, the Lord, search the heart. I test the mind, even to give every man according to his ways, according to the fruit of his doings." This is really, if we could break this down a little bit, right? It says, the heart is deceitful above all things, right? The heart can be, if your heart is hard, it'll be deceitful. It'll be wicked. It says, and desperately wicked. Who can know it but the person that is going through it, right? But guess what? Other people see when you're wicked. Other people see when you're deceitful. I, the Lord, search the heart. I test the mind, even to give every man according to his ways. So God takes us and He says, okay, you're wicked. I'm going to let you go through all this stuff, and you're probably going to get away with some stuff, but eventually you're going to pay for it. You're not wicked. You might go through some stuff, but in the end, you will be blessed.
Amen.
He says in this verse, according to the fruit of his doings. So whatever fruit you bear, that's the harvest that you're going to have. If we're grounded in our faith, our hearts cannot be deceived by the enemy. But if we're not grounded, we will be deceived by the enemy. And God is going to continue to search our hearts, our minds, to see where we're at. God is going to see it. And God is going to provide according to where we are. And so I ask that we do not fall into that trap. I ask that we live according to God's will, that we do the things that God has planned for us, and we will see the fruits of our labor and the benefits of standing with God. We need to stand with God. We need to walk with Him. We need to allow God to work in our lives. We need to please Him if we want to continue to be with Him. He wants us to be obedient, and He wants us to love Him with no strings attached, just like He loves us. And lastly, we will see the fruits of our labor according to God's will. But how we live our lives will determine how God proceeds with us. So let's think back, let's look deep into our hearts and see what God has for us. Amen?